never really the biggest Superman fan before watching Smallville a few years back, but since then, I've become a massive fan, and like many others have been on the search for a great Superman game. For a hero debuting decades before the conception of video games, Superman has always been on a rocky road with both games and movies. On film, no one has ever quite been able to capture the magic that Richard Donner and Christopher Reeve had in the original movies. Many have tried over the years, some of them never even making it to screen, but one film tried the hardest to reach that same level by trying to be those movies. I'm talking about Superman Returns, the 2006 movie directed by Bryan Singer, and starring the Arrowverse's very own Ray Palmer, the Atom, Brandon Routh, who is a highly underrated actor. And much like Brandon Routh, the movie is also highly underrated. It has its quirks like any other early 2000s superhero movie, and inconveniently released just 2 years before The Dark Knight changed the superhero movie genre forever. No one took superhero movies seriously before Heath Ledger painted his face and talked like he had a whole sack of marbles in his mouth.
Never start with the head. The victim gets all fuzzy. He can't feel the neck. See?
So instead of reaching massive mainstream success, Superman Returns was mostly just forgotten about, and along with it, so was multiple video game adaptations. The Superman Returns game looks bafflingly fun, unlike the average movie tie-in game. That is, with the exclusion of the 2002 Spider-Man movie game. It was a free-roaming Superman game allowing the player free reign of Metropolis with all the powers of Superman. And for being a first-year Xbox 360 game, it looked okay. A Nintendo DS port was also released with the free roam aspect dropped due to hardware limitations, which was the normal approach taken for handheld ports at the time. But what wasn't average was the Game Boy Advance version under the title Superman Returns: Fortress of Solitude. All versions of the game were published by EA Studios before they were the company that only developed microtransactions, and was developed by EA-owned studios Santa Cruz Games, which closed down just 3 years after the release of their last game being a Spider-Man plug-and-play, and EA Tiburon, which was mostly known for the Madden series. Fortress of Solitude is nothing like the other versions of the game. Instead of flying around the city, fighting bad guys, and saving kittens from skyscrapers, the full game takes place in the Fortress of Solitude, doing logic-based puzzles. I was so intrigued by this game when I first found out about it. I was expecting something more along the lines of Marvel Puzzle Quest, where you fight battles by playing Bejeweled. But once I booted it up, I was surprised to see that the game was puzzles. Just puzzles that escalate in difficulty as you complete each one. When you get to the main menu, you'll be given the option to start a new game, load, or train. Training will give you the option to pick between the 3 types of puzzles in the game and teach you how each one is played. Each game has a designated crystal color, the first being yellow, which stands for Kryptonics, which I'm told is a Sudoku-like game, but I've never actually played Sudoku to know. The basis is that a player is given a square of rows and columns with various shapes and colors of crystals inside of them, and you'll have to use that big old brain of yours to figure out which crystals go in the remaining boxes. But a crystal of the same kind can't appear in any other square in the same row or column. The second game, represented by the blue crystal, is called Crystallization, which is another grid-based crystal matching game that gives the player a grid with a color and shape-changing crystal in the middle of the grid. Are you keeping up? A lot of crystals and a lot of grids going on here. You'll then need to create rows by matching crystals of either the same color or shape without being different from the surrounding crystals. Each of these puzzles increases in difficulty as you progress by adding more rows, columns, shapes, and colors. At any time in both of these puzzle types, you'll be able to use a few of Superman's abilities that can be switched by pressing the select button. Like X-ray vision, to see all the correct answers left on the board. You'll also have the ability to stop time for a little bit, or the power to generate a new crystal when you're out of moves. But these abilities can only be used a certain amount of times for each puzzle, designated by the power bar in the corner. The last of the 3, represented by the red crystal, is called Epic Battles. And honestly, the name says it all. This is the only puzzle mode, if you can even call it a puzzle, that you actually play as the Superman mentioned in the title. In case you forgot, this is a Superman game. The screen is at a consistent scroll as you fly up, down, forward, and backwards, while enemies colored red and blue fly back at you. The goal is to use your red heat vision against the blue enemies, or your blue freeze breath against red enemies, to make them drop, you guessed it, crystals, either colored red or blue. A set amount of red and blue crystals are needed to pass each stage, before Superman is either hit too many times, or defeats all the enemies, which will grant you these Christian animated DVD quality slides of Superman defeating the bad guys. But they did surprisingly nail Brandon Routh's likeness. If you don't manage to defeat all the enemies, you'll be penalized by having less power to use for your abilities. These sections have a few different backdrops and enemies throughout the game, but the gameplay stays the same, just ramping up difficulty as you go. The goal of the main game is to fill all the slots in each of the crystal sets or chapters by doing a series of cryptonics and crystallization puzzles that are randomly halted by epic battles. But what really makes the game interesting is the time limit. For each crystal slot set, you're given a time to finish all the puzzles. This time is for all the puzzles in the set. So for the first set, you get 10 minutes to complete all 7 puzzles, and will be docked 30 seconds of time for every wrong answer. If you fail to complete a puzzle with the time you have left, you'll be taken back to the crystal slot set selection screen to try again. But you may need to complete a previously finished puzzle aiming for a better time so that you have more time to complete the failed puzzle. Once a chapter is complete, you'll earn a screenshot from the movie, and in the end of the game, you're tasked with placing each screenshot in the order they appear in the film, for absolutely no reason at all. It doesn't do anything. So for a game I was originally disappointed in, Fortress of Solitude really surprised me. I found myself popping it on here and there to play a puzzle or two and accidentally killing a half hour. Grasping the rules of each of the puzzles was a little confusing at first, but once I got the hang of it, it became really fun and actually kind of addicting. I still don't see any point at all in linking it to Superman Returns, or even the Superman franchise for that matter, besides name recognition. I guess I never would have given this basic crystal puzzle matching game a shot without the Superman license behind it, but finding out that a puzzle-based game was made to tie into the movie really piqued my curiosity. I have said crystal like 45 times today. Go play Superman.